Welcome back to Midnight Horror Hour. If you joined us in part 1, you already know the highways of America hold more than mile markers and broken guardrails. Tonight, we continue that journey into the dark. 2 new roads, 2 new encounters. So, let's pick up right where we left off. I tell my patients all the time that sleep deprivation messes with your head. Hallucinations, paranoia, your brain filling in gaps with things that aren't there. So trust me when I say this. I want to believe that what I saw that night on that mountain road in eastern Kentucky was just that. I want to, but I can't, because there are claw marks on my car door that no body shop can explain, and a truck driver who swears he saw something running beside me that night, when I was already going 50. My name's Emily. I'm a traveling nurse. I bounce between hospitals that can't keep full-time staff, small ERs, rural clinics, nursing homes tucked into places GPS barely believes exist. I just finished a 13-week contract at a little hospital in Harlan County, Kentucky, deep in the Appalachians. Pretty in the daytime, tree-covered hills, front porches, kids riding four-wheelers. At night, though, those hills close in. My last shift was a 12-hour overnight that turned into 14. Car crash, COPD flare, meth withdrawal in the hallway. By the time I clocked out, the fluorescent lights had been burning into my eyes for so long, the world looked slightly overexposed. I had a cheap extended stay room down in town, but my next assignment was 3 hours away, across the state line, and I was stupidly determined to get a head start right then. The charge nurse looked at me over her glasses as I grabbed my bag. "You driving tonight?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just a couple hours, then I'll crash at a motel." She made a face. "Don't fall asleep on those back roads, and if you see anybody out running around the hollers this late, just keep driving, honey." I laughed it off in that tired, automatic way. She didn't laugh back. It was almost 11:30 p.m. when I pulled out of the hospital lot. The town lights dropped behind me fast, replaced by patchy street lamps, and then nothing but dark trees and the shine of my own headlights. I took Route 421 north, then peeled off onto a smaller 2-lane that wound through the hills like it was trying not to wake them. The kind of road with no shoulder, just asphalt, a crumbling white line, and then a steep drop into brush and rock. My 2014 Civic hummed along, dashboard glowing a soft blue. My travel nurse badge still dangled from the mirror, swaying with every curve. I turned the radio low, a classic rock station out of somewhere I couldn't pronounce. It buzzed in and out with the mountains. The night outside was thick, no houses, no porch lights, just walls of black trees crowding the road. Every once in a while, my headlights would catch the metal gleam of a guardrail or the pale cut of a rock face. Then it'd all sink back into darkness again. I told myself I liked driving at night. Less traffic, more peaceful. But there's peaceful, and there's whatever that was. About 40 minutes in, I hit my first patch of fog. It came out of nowhere. 1 second the air was clear, the next my windshield was full of swirling white, like someone had poured milk into the forest. I slowed to 30, leaned forward a bit, hands at 10 and 2 like I was taking a driving test again. The beams of my headlights turned into chalky cones that showed maybe 30 yards of road tops. My brain started doing what overworked brains do, drifting. Patient faces blurred into one another, medication schedules. That one guy who threatened to sue because I wouldn't give him more opioids. I found myself replaying things I could have done differently that shift. It's like guilt knows exactly when you're trapped in a quiet place. That's when I heard the first sound. It was faint, just a soft crack of something in the woods off to my right. I've done enough night shifts near wooded areas to know the difference between branches settling and something moving through them. This sounded like footsteps. Deer, I told myself. Could be a deer, but the sound stayed. Crack, crunch, matching my speed. I turned the radio down until it was barely a whisper. The fog thinned enough that I could see the tree line, sloping up to the right, full of black trunks and tangled undergrowth. Shadows layered on shadows, and between two of those shadows, something moved. It was just a pale shape, there and gone in a second. I caught it in the edge of my headlights. Something upright, tall, sliding between the trees like a person jogging parallel to the road. "Okay," I muttered. "That's weird." I told myself it was someone out coon hunting or running dogs, even though I didn't hear any dogs, and this was a hell of a time to be out jogging through the woods. The fog thickened again, swallowing the tree line. The footstep sounds faded into nothing but engine noise and tire hum. For a while, that was enough. My brain filed it under random Appalachia weirdness and moved on. But a little seed of unease planted itself right under my sternum and refused to leave. However, about 10 miles later, I spotted the glow of a tiny gas station up ahead. One of those old combo places with 2 pumps and a flickering open sign buzzing like an angry bee. I checked my fuel gauge. I still had half a tank. I did not need to stop. I pulled in anyway. The gravel crunched under my tires as I eased up next to the pump. There were no other cars. The hill rose steeply behind the building, crowded with trees. Somebody'd tacked an American flag up by the door. It barely moved in the still air. Inside, the fluorescent lights looked too bright. I fought a yawn as I walked in. There were 3 people inside. A middle-aged woman at the counter, sipping coffee from a styrofoam cup. A man in greasy coveralls flipping through a fishing magazine. An older guy in a camo jacket sitting on a stool by the coffee pots, chewing on a toothpick. They all looked up when the bell over the door jingled. For just a second, their expressions were too serious. Not curious, not annoyed, more like checking for something. Then the woman forced a smile. "Evening, sweetheart," she said. "You out late?" "Yeah," I said. "Headed north. Thought I'd grab some caffeine before the mountain tries to put me to sleep." The man in coveralls muttered, "Mountain ain't the only thing out there," under his breath. The woman shot him a look. She rang up my energy drink and granola bar, eyes flicking toward the window where my car sat under the lone parking lot light. "You driving alone?" she asked. "Pretty much," I said. "Just me." She made a quiet, unhappy sound. "Y'all should stick to the main roads at night if you can," she said. "These little holler roads ain't safe." I thought she meant drunk drivers or deer. "Yeah, the curves are no joke," I said. The old guy on the stool snorted. "Curves ain't what I'd be worried about," he said. His voice had that mountain gravel sound, deep and scratchy. "You running 421 up to the ridge?" "Yeah," I said. Then I cut across toward Hazard. He shook his head slowly. "You already got it on you," he said. My stomach tightened. "Got what on me?" The woman hissed, "Earl, hush!" under her breath. But Earl kept staring at me, toothpick bobbing. "You seen it yet?" he asked. "Out there in the trees? Runs when you run, slows when you slow." A cold little knot formed in my chest. "I saw something, probably just a deer," I said. He smiled without humor. "Deer don't keep pace with a Honda up the side of a mountain," he said. The woman slammed a hand lightly on the counter. "Earl!" He sighed, looked back at his coffee. She pushed my receipt toward me. Her hand trembled just a little. "Listen," she said quietly. "Whatever you think you see on that road, it ain't a person, okay? Don't stop for it. Don't roll your window down. Don't you ever open that door." "Okay," I said slowly. "I wasn't planning to." I tried to joke. "Pretty sure that's Serial Killer 101. Nobody laughed. I stepped back out into the night with the tiny bell jingling behind me. The air felt colder. The darkness felt thicker somehow. I climbed into my car, locked the doors, and sat there for a second with the engine idling. My reflection in the windshield looked more tired than I felt. Dark circles, hair thrown up in a messy bun, scrub top half untucked. "You're fine," I told myself. "They're just messing with the out-of-towner." Still, as I pulled back onto the road, I checked the back seat in the mirror twice. Just a duffel bag, my jacket, and a stethoscope swinging from the headrest like a lazy pendulum. My demic person of the road climbed higher. The curves got sharper, the drop-offs deeper. No more fog, but the darkness here felt denser, like the trees were soaking up the headlights instead of reflecting them. I focused on the center line, on the rhythm of turn signals and gentle braking, the same way I focus on a patient's vitals when I'm about to pass out on hour 13. After about 20 minutes, the monotony started to numb me. My brain drifted again, this time not to work, but to that weird warning. You already got it on you. It was stupid, urban legend stuff, mountain folk hazing the outsider. That's what I told myself, right up until I saw it again. At first, it was just movement in my peripheral vision, something pale flickering between the trees to my right, up on the slope. Then, as I came out of a tight S-curve and onto a straight stretch, my headlights caught it full on. It was running along the tree line, maybe 20 yards off the road. An upright figure, tall, too tall. I say figure because man doesn't feel right. The proportions were wrong. The arms a little too long, the legs too straight, like the knees didn't bend enough. Its head was tilted to one side, as if trying to hear something better. It was keeping up with me, easily. I was doing 45. My chest went tight. I pressed the gas reflexively, 50. The thing in the trees matched me. It didn't look like it was sprinting either. It moved in this long, loping stride, almost lazy, weaving around trunks without ever seeming to really look at them. Every time my headlights passed over it, details blurred in a way that didn't look like normal motion blur. It was like my eyes couldn't focus on it, like the shape was being smudged by something. My medical brain decided this was some kind of stress hallucination. My survival brain decided it did not care what it was called. Not real. You're exhausted. You're fine, I whispered, even as my foot pressed harder on the gas. 55. The figure kept pace. Then it stepped closer. It slid down the slope, out of the tree line, and for a few seconds ran right along the edge of the road, just beyond the white line. I could see it better now. The limbs were long but thin, like someone had stretched a person out on a rack. The clothes, if they were clothes, were ragged and dark, hanging off in torn, stringy edges that fluttered despite the still air. Its face was the worst part, because there wasn't one. Where features should have been, there was just darkness, a slightly deeper patch of shadow, like reality had been erased from that oval. It ran with its head still tilted toward me, like it was listening to the engine, or my heart. I shot up to 60, which on that road was insane. Stop looking at it. Eyes on the road. Eyes on the road, I tried, but my gaze kept darting right, magnet pulled to that impossible shape gliding along with me like it weighed nothing. Then it dropped to all fours. The movement was so sudden I flinched. 1 second it was upright, the next it folded in half without slowing down, arms planting on the ground with its legs, and it sped up. Something about the way its joints bent made my stomach flip. Knees and elbows went the wrong direction, like someone had drawn a stick figure wrong and made it real. It ran ahead of my car, a blurred shadow at the edge of my high beams, then veered up the slope and vanished into the trees. The whole thing couldn't have lasted more than 10 seconds. It felt like an hour. My hands hurt. I realized I'd been gripping the steering wheel so hard, my fingers had gone numb. Sleep deprivation, I whispered. You saw a hunter, or a tree, or nothing at all. You're tired. The problem was, my body didn't buy it. My heart rate was pounding in my ears, my mouth was dry, and that little nurse part of my brain, the one that reads monitors and knows what danger looks like, was screaming. I made myself slow down. 50, 45, 40. The road curved again, hugging the side of a ravine. A rock wall loomed on my left. On the right, The land dropped away into blackness, broken only by the ghost-pale outlines of bare branches. I rounded one more bend and slammed both feet on the brake. The road ahead was completely blocked. A rock slide had come down from the left, spilling across both lanes in a jagged, knee-high mess. Broken slabs of limestone and spiky chunks of smaller rock lay scattered on the asphalt like someone had emptied a giant gravel truck sideways. I skidded to a stop 10 feet from the nearest boulder, ABS juddering in the pedal under my foot. The seatbelt grabbed hard across my chest, biting into my shoulder. For a second, I just sat there, heart thudding, headlights painting harsh shadows across the fallen rock. Then the rational part of my brain came back online. Okay, rock slide. Dangerous, but normal. You call 911, report it. Turn around, go back to town. Easy. I grabbed my phone from the cup holder. No bars. Not one bar of roaming, or maybe if you stand on the roof, just a big fat no service in the top corner. I stared at it, then at the rock slide, then at the darkness behind me. I could try to backtrack all the way to the last junction, but that meant threading those curves again, with whatever that thing was potentially waiting in the trees. Or I could sit here and hope someone else came along, at midnight, in the mountains, on a road I hadn't seen another car on in over an hour. My mouth went dry. That was when the forest went quiet. I hadn't even realized there were sounds until they stopped. Up until then, there'd been the subtle background noise you only notice when it's gone. The chirp of night insects, the soft whisper of leaves, distant trickles of water. Suddenly, nothing. The silence pressed against the car windows like foam. Somewhere deep in my chest, that primitive part of the brain, the one older than all my nursing textbooks, woke up and said, "You need to leave, now." I shifted into reverse, intending to just back away, find any wide spot in the road to turn around. That's when something tapped on the rear passenger side. It was small at first, just a light tap-tap, like a finger on glass. I froze, foot still on the brake. Tap-tap-tap. The sound traveled, moving along the side of the car, up toward the back door. The hair on my arm stood up so fast it hurt. "Tree branch," I whispered. "It's just a tree branch." Tap. Whatever it was, it hit the window right next to my head. I flinched away, heart slamming against my ribs. The glass shivered but didn't break. A thin line of condensation spread outward from the impact point, as if something cold had touched it. Then the tapping stopped. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay, Emily, you're not getting out of this car. I don't care if Jesus himself knocks and asks for a ride. You are not—" Something scraped along the back door. Not like a branch dragging in the wind. This was slower, more deliberate. A long, drawn-out scree of something hard against metal. I pictured claws, even though I'd never seen claws. My eyes filled with tears, part fear, part sheer exhaustion, and my brain went into clinical detachment mode. "This is tachycardia," it reported calmly. "Elevated respiratory rate, adrenaline surge. You are having a panic response." No shit, I thought. The scraping crept toward the rear corner of the car, then up along the roof. Each inch sounded like it took hours. The whole car vibrated with the contact. The dome light flickered, then steadied. Whatever was on the roof felt heavy. I imagined it crawling, long limbs spread wide, hands and feet gripping the metal. I imagined it kneeling there, listening through the thin barrier, hearing my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. The driver's side door handle jiggled. That snapped something in me. I slapped the manual lock even though I'd already hit the electronic one twice. The handle rattled again, harder this time. Then the one on the passenger side. My breathing went shallow. "Please," I whispered to no one in particular. "Please just go." A shadow slid across my windshield, just the slightest darkening, like something big had crawled forward to peer over the edge of the roof. I couldn't see a face, just the suggestion of a head, haloed by my own headlights reflecting off the rock slide. The glass in front of me fogged in a slow, circular pattern, like something was exhaling against it. From the outside, my vision tunneled. The nurse in me knew I was this close to passing out. "What do you want?" I hissed through my teeth, which was stupid, but fear doesn't care about logic. For a moment, nothing happened. Then something tapped dead center on the windshield, a single, sharp rap that spidered a hairline crack across the inside of the glass. I flinched back, hitting the headrest. In that split second of impact, I saw it more clearly than I had all night. A long, pale hand, fingers too thin, too long, splayed against the glass. Skin, or whatever passed for skin, looked stretched, almost translucent. There were no fingernails, just blunt, dark tips, like bone. It held there for one heartbeat, two, then slid slowly downward, leaving a faint smear of frost. Headlights bloomed in my rearview mirror. At first I thought I was imagining them, that my brain was finally giving up and inventing help. But they grew brighter, turned slightly as an engine roared around the curve behind me. A log truck, big, loud, its own headlights cutting through the night like searchlights. The weight on my roof vanished. I felt it, an actual shift as the car bounced slightly on its shocks. The fog on the windshield thinned, as if someone had stepped back. The truck's horn blared, a long, angry blast. I threw a hand up in front of my face as its lights hit my mirrors full on. The truck screeched to a halt behind me, brakes whining under the load. It stopped so close I could feel the rumble of its engine through my seat. For a moment, all I could do was sit there, shaking, watching my breath fog the inside of the car. Then someone pounded on my window. I nearly came out of my skin. I turned and saw a man's face, real, human, bearded, peering in at me from the driver's side. He wore a mesh cap, orange safety vest, and the exact expression I'd expect from someone who just found a Civic parked in front of a rock slide at midnight. I cracked the window 2 inches. "You all right in there?" he yelled over the idling engine. I nodded, swallowed, forced words out. "Yeah, rock slide. I didn't see it until the last second." He glanced past me at the jumbled rock. "Yeah, that'll do it," he said. "You're lucky you stopped in time." He squinted at me again, eyes narrowing. "You been sitting here long?" I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe 10 minutes? 15? He grunted, like that confirmed something for him. "You see anybody out here?" he asked. "Anybody running the road?" My throat closed. "Why?" He leaned closer to the glass. "Because when I came around that last bend," he said slowly, "I saw something beside your car." My skin crawled. What kind of something?" He chewed his lip, choosing his words. "Looked like a man at first," he said, "but it was too tall. And it was running up next to your door like it wasn't even touching the ground. By the time my brights hit you, it was gone. Back up in them rocks." He jerked his chin toward the dark slope above us. "I've run this haul 15 years, he said. "There's a reason most of us don't drive these hollers alone in little cars after dark." Something in my chest twisted. "Okay," I said quietly. What do I do?" He straightened up, glanced at the rock slide again. "Well, you ain't squeezing that Honda past this," he said. "Best I can do is back up, give you room to turn around, and get you down to the junction. There's a state trooper barracks about 20 miles back. You can report this mess, and maybe whatever you saw." Whatever I saw. I realized I hadn't told him I'd seen anything. He must have read something in my face, because his expression softened. "You ain't the first one," he said. "Won't be the last. Come on, get turned around before that fog rolls back in." Backing up on that narrow mountain road with a loaded log truck behind me was one of the most stressful 10-point turns of my life. The whole time, I kept expecting to see something in the mirror, something pale darting across the beams, or a long arm reaching out of the trees. Nothing did. We finally got flipped around. The truck took the lead, its massive taillights, 2 red suns burning the darkness ahead of me. I tucked my little Civic close behind, like a kid hiding behind an older sibling. I didn't see anything else on the way down. No shadows in the trees, no pale shapes pacing us. Just the road unwinding backwards, curve by nerve-wracking curve, until the hills opened up into a wider valley and the air felt breathable again. 20 minutes later, the glow of the state police post appeared on the side of the highway, like something out of a different world. The trooper on duty listened to our story with the patient, resigned expression of someone who has heard versions of it before. He wrote up a report about the rock slide, radioed it in, then looked at me. "You say you saw somebody out there?" My mouth opened, then closed. I remembered the face-shaped absence, the way its joints bent wrong, the frost on the glass. I don't know what I saw," I said finally. He nodded like that was the right answer. "You headed far?" he asked. "Hazard, then on to Pikeville," I said. "I'm a traveling nurse. Next assignment." He considered that. "Well," he said, "I'd recommend you stick to the 4-lane tonight. It'll add some time, but it's lit, and you'll be around other folks. These little back roads, they've got stories." I almost asked him what kind of stories. His eyes said I didn't really want to know. The trucker clapped me lightly on the shoulder before he left. "Get some sleep, nurse," he said. "You look like you've been through it." I managed a weak laugh. "You have no idea." He hesitated, then added, "If you're smart, you won't drive alone up there again after dark. It's like ringing a dinner bell for that thing." That thing. I didn't ask him to elaborate. I took the trooper's advice. Stuck to the bigger highways the rest of the night, even though it added almost an hour. I checked into a motel just outside Hazard around 3 a.m. My hands were still trembling as I slid the key card into the door. Inside, the cheap artwork and heavy patterned comforter felt like luxury. I took the fastest shower of my life, left the TV on some cooking show for background noise, and finally collapsed into bed. You'd think I would have slept like the dead. Instead, I dreamed of running. In the dream, I was on foot in the dark, sprinting down a 2-lane road. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but every time I looked down, they weren't moving fast enough, like running through deep water. Behind me, something loped along effortlessly, never breaking a sweat, never out of breath. No matter how fast I pushed myself, it stayed just out of sight. I could feel it though, hot and cold at the same time, reaching. Right before it touched me, I woke up. I was lying on the motel bed, heart hammering, the TV still murmuring about sautéing onions. On the wall opposite the bed, just above the AC unit, a long, dark smudge streaked upward from the baseboard. It might have been dirt. It might have been a shadow from something outside. But for a second, half awake, my brain told me it was a handprint. I shook it off. I had to. I forced myself to get up, get dressed, get back on the road in daylight. The scratches on my car were the only part I couldn't shake. On the rear passenger door, 3 long gouges ran from window to wheel well, too deep, too evenly spaced to be from a bush or bramble. The body shop later said they looked like they'd been made with some kind of tool, except there was no matching pattern on the paint, no point of impact, no obvious starting mark. Just 3 parallel lines, like something had dragged its hand along the car and pushed as it went. I still have that door. I got the rest of the car fixed, but I told them to leave those marks. Maybe that's messed up, but part of me needs to see them, needs to know I didn't just dream it all. A few weeks later, I was working nights at my new assignment. Bigger hospital, busier ER, different mountains in the distance. One slow moment around 3 a.m., one of the older nurses started telling local stories to the new grads, things about coal mines and hollers and why you never whistle in the woods at night. I didn't say anything until she mentioned seeing something running beside her car when she was a teenager. My head snapped up. "What did it look like?" I asked, maybe too quickly. She gave me a sharp look. "Why, you seen it?" She described it almost exactly the way I'd seen it. Too tall, too thin, wrong joints, running without seeming to touch the ground. "We call it the night runner," she said. "Some folks say it's a spirit from one of the old mines. Some say it's something older that just uses those stories as camouflage now. All I know is, It don't like to be alone on the road. It likes company." She shrugged. "If it ever runs beside you," she added, "you don't stop. You don't look it in the face. And if you hear something on your roof, you pray it gets bored before your engine does." My heart lurched. "Why before your engine does?" She held my gaze a long second. "Because once your car dies," she said quietly, "it ain't in a hurry anymore." I didn't tell her my story that night. Didn't tell her about the rock slide or the hand on the windshield, or the trucker who'd seen it sprinting beside me like gravity was optional. It felt like saying it out loud would make it stronger, more real. Instead, I started doing the one thing I swore I wouldn't: reading. I found threads online, anonymous posts from drivers in Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, talking about something that runs the road at night. Some said it chased them. Some said it just watched. Some claimed it had followed them home. A lot of them ended their stories the same way. People say it only hunts in the mountains, but ever since that night, I see things running in the tree line no matter where I go. I closed my laptop. I told myself I was done feeding that particular monster. About a month after the rock slide, I got assigned a float shift at the main hospital campus in Lexington. Bigger city, more traffic, lots of lights, the opposite of that mountain road. I finished a late evening shift and drove back to my short-term rental just outside town. 4-lane highway, streetlights, billboards, nothing spooky. Yet, as I merged onto the last stretch before my exit, I caught a flicker of movement in the mirror. At first, I thought it was just a reflection from another car, but the lane behind me was empty. Something pale darted along the sound barrier wall on the right, just beyond the reach of the nearest street lamp. I stared straight ahead, refused to look. I cranked the radio, rolled my shoulders, told myself it was just a trick of the eyes. But as I took my exit, curving off the main highway onto the quieter road leading to my rental, I heard it. A soft, familiar tap-tap on the rear quarter panel. My chest tightened. I didn't slow down, didn't speed up, just drove. Streetlights flicked past overhead in steady intervals. My little car hummed along at 45. Tap. A single, gentle knock on the back door. I gripped the wheel until my hands hurt and stared at the white line at the edge of my lane like it was the only real thing left in the world. I didn't look in the mirror. I didn't look at the window. I just kept driving, all the way to my rental, into the parking lot, under the blessed floodlight. When I finally forced myself to get out and look, there was nothing there. No figure in the shadows, no smudge on the glass, just the same 3 long scratches on the door, catching the light like old scars. Here's the thing they don't tell you about being a traveling nurse. You get used to packing up and leaving places behind, towns, hospitals, patients, coworkers. You drive away from other people's worst nights and start over somewhere new, over and over, until nowhere feels permanent. But some things don't stay where you leave them. People talk about burnout, compassion fatigue, moral injury. They don't talk about the way certain shifts feel like something crawled inside your chest, curled up, and stayed. I used to think that was just a metaphor. Now, every time I'm on some lonely road between assignments and the forest closes in a little too tight, every time my headlights catch a hint of movement in the trees, every time the radio hisses for no reason at all, I wonder if the night runner is still pacing me. Not just out there on the ridges of Eastern Kentucky, but in that thin space between fatigue and fear, reality, and whatever lives just past it. I tell myself it's just sleep deprivation, stress, trauma. I want to believe that. But sometimes, on the quietest roads, when I hear the faintest little tap on the side of my car, I can't help feeling like the mountain never really let me go, and that somewhere, not too far off the shoulder, something is still running, waiting for me to look. Now let's have this second story for today. This is our today's last story. If you've ever driven I-84 through the Blue Mountains in Oregon, you've probably heard of Dead Man Pass. They put the nice name on the exit signs, Cabbage Hill, Dead Man Pass Viewpoint, but every trucker I've ever met just calls it what it is, that damned mountain that wants to kill you. My name's Mike. I've been a tow truck driver for close to 15 years. Big rigs, wreckers, rollovers, the stuff you hope you never need. When pileups happen in bad weather, when a semi loses its brakes, when a car goes through a guardrail, that's when guys like me get the call. I've seen a lot of ugly nights, but the night I'm about to tell you about on Dead Man Pass, that's the one that still wakes me up with the sound of breathing in the fog that isn't mine. People think the danger up there is just the grade. 7% downhill, sharp curves, runaway truck ramps that look like they go straight into the sky. In the winter, there's black ice, blowing snow, chains breaking. But the thing that makes Dead Man Pass really earn its name is the fog. It doesn't roll in like normal weather, it just appears. One minute you can see the valley lights all the way down toward Pendleton. The next minute, it's like someone poured concrete into the air. Headlights turn into white smears, taillights vanish, depth perception goes straight to hell. Guys lose it up there. I've pulled more than one driver out of a truck with their hands still clamped to the wheel, eyes wide, swearing they saw something in the fog that wasn't there when we showed up. I used to chalk that up to shock. Now, I'm not so sure. 2 winters before that night, we had a bad pileup on the eastbound side. Fog, ice, chain reaction. I got called out toward the end, once the ambulances had started hauling people off and the troopers were trying to clear the mess. There was this one pickup, crumpled under the back of a trailer, front end accordioned, windshield gone. We found the driver half out of the cab, pinned. Young guy, maybe early 20s, still wearing his work vest. I remember his hand. I remember holding it. He asked me if he was going to make it, and I told him, "Yeah, bud, you're good. They're gonna get you out." He died before the jaws of life finished cutting. You learn to box stuff up in this job, but I never completely boxed that one. That night, when the fog came back thicker than I'd ever seen it, I kept thinking about that kid. It was late November, right around Thanksgiving. Long-haul drivers pushing themselves to make deliveries before the holiday. People trying to beat a storm, that kind of week. I was on call, half asleep on my couch, TV on low, when dispatch rang. "Got a jackknifed tractor trailer up near the summit, eastbound," the dispatcher said. "Oregon State Police already on scene. They want a heavy wrecker up there ASAP." I scrubbed a hand over my face. Fog? Dense as hell. They're running rolling slowdowns. Of course they were. I pulled on my boots, grabbed my jacket, and headed out to the yard. The air was cold enough to bite, breath hanging in little puffs. The sky over town was clear, stars bright, no clouds. You'd never have guessed that 15 miles up the road, visibility was about to drop to nothing. I fired up the wrecker, the big one we use for semis. Engine rumbled to life with that deep, comforting diesel growl. Amber beacons flickered across the hood. Inside, the cab was familiar. Coffee stains, work gloves on the dash, my kid's drawing clipped by the air vent. I rolled out onto the freeway, heading east, climbing. Out past the last set of town lights, darkness thickened. The CB crackled with chatter from truckers already in the area. "Eastbound, you got a parking lot up there. Slowing to 30, can't see shit. OSP's got flares out past mile 92. Watch yourselves." I listened with half an ear. They all sounded nervous. That's the thing about Dead Man Pass. Nobody pretends to be a hero up there. You respect the mountain, or it eats you. First sign of trouble was milepost 216. 1 second, I could see the faint glow of taillights way ahead. The next, they smudged and vanished. The fog didn't drift in from one side like you see in movies. It just blinked into existence. My headlights slammed into a gray wall. What had been clear air became a flat, uniform whiteness that gave no sense of distance. It was like driving into the inside of a ping-pong ball. I eased off the throttle. 40, 35, 30, flipped on the fog lights. Didn't help. The beams just bounced back more glow, making it harder to tell where the road ended and the shoulder began. All I had were the rumble strips and those little reflective posts every few yards, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. I've driven in bad fog before. This felt wrong. The sound changed, too. With the windows cracked, I should have heard the usual, distant engine noise, the roar of trucks on the downgrade, the hiss of air brakes. Instead, everything sounded muted, like someone had wrapped the whole mountain in insulation. The engine in my own truck sounded suddenly far away, like I was hearing it through headphones. The CB radio fizzled into static. Dead. Copy? I adjusted the squelch. Nothing but white noise. Great, I muttered. That's exactly what I needed. The knot in my gut from earlier tightened. Fog does weird things to sound, I know that. But this felt like the fog itself was listening back. As I crawled past one of the runaway truck ramps, something moved in my peripheral vision. Off to the right, just beyond the shoulder, there was a darker patch in the fog. A smudge of shadow where everything else was flat gray. You know how your brain sometimes invents shapes in clouds? That's what I told myself at first. Except the shadow was upright. For a second, just long enough to cut the breath in my lungs, I swear I saw the outline of a figure standing there. Tall. Too tall. Shoulders narrow, arms hanging down a little too far. No details, no face, just the absence of light in the middle of fog. Then the wrecker rolled forward, and that part of the world vanished behind the glow. I didn't see it again in that spot. I did, however, start seeing it in other spots. Half a mile later, as I crept through a sweeping left curve, the same kind of shadow showed up ahead, right where the white line met the fog. It didn't move like a person. It didn't do anything, really. It was just there. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, told myself it was a trick of depth and lights and nerves. But every few hundred yards it appeared again, first on the right, then on the median, then, briefly, dead center in my lane, making my heart lurch before it dissolved as I got close. Each time it was the same, taller than it should be, thinner than it should be, edges not quite staying put. Like the fog was trying to remember how to make a person and failing. I found myself talking out loud, just to hear a human voice. Mike, you're tired. You're wound up. There's a guy waiting on a hook up ahead. You can't afford to lose it now. You finally saw the flashing red and blue about a half mile later. Muted glows pulsing through the fog like distant lightning. OSP, Wrecker 1's about a half mile out. If you can hear me, I said, more out of habit than expectation. Static answered. As I got closer, shapes began to materialize. The faint outline of a cruiser sideways across a lane, flares burning on the wet pavement, cones set up along the center line. The air smelled like hot brakes and that sharp metallic tang you only get from recently crashed vehicles. I downshifted, eased the truck to a crawl, rolled the window down the rest of the way. A trooper stepped out of the murk, reflective vest glowing, one hand up. Mike, I pulled to a stop, set the brake. He walked up to my door, face half hidden by his hat and the swirling fog. Evening, Mike, he said, voice familiar. I recognized him, Lewis, one of the regulars up here. Some night, huh? I said. Yeah, he grunted. We got us a FedEx rig that decided to take a nap sideways. He pointed with his flashlight. Through the gray, I saw the faint bulk of a tractor trailer jackknifed across the right lane and shoulder, nose crumpled against the guardrail. Hazards blinked weakly. Driver okay? I asked. Shaken but walking, Lewis said. He's in the cruiser. Said he swerved because he thought he saw somebody in the lane. Far as we can tell, there wasn't anybody there. That knot in my gut grew teeth. Someone in the lane, I repeated. Yeah, Lewis said, frowning. Tall, thin. That's how he put it. Gave us a hell of a look when I told him you were on the way. Asked if you'd seen it yet. I swallowed. Seen what? He shrugged. His shadow man in the fog, he said. Tried to make it sound like a joke. Didn't quite get there. I hooked my gloves into my belt and stepped down onto the pavement. The fog swallowed me up to the shoulders. The wrecker's beacons turned the world into a swirling mess of amber and gray. If I walked more than 10 feet from the truck, it was just a vague, glowing blob behind me. There's something uniquely wrong about not being able to see up. The skies should be open, even at night. Up here, though, the fog ceiling hung low enough that my headlights bounced right off it, turning the whole world into a closed room. Sound was still wrong, too. My own footsteps on the wet pavement sounded like they were coming from the other side of a wall. I made my way toward the FedEx rig, counting steps more than looking, flashlight beam cutting a narrow tunnel through the gray. Halfway there, I felt it. Not heard, not seen, felt. Like standing too close to a big speaker you can't hear, but your organs can. Something was in the fog with us. I don't have better words for it than that. The air had a weight to it, a pressure, like being underwater. The hair on my arms and neck stood up. My skin prickled under my jacket. I stopped without meaning to. Lewis's flashlight bobbed somewhere off to my left. Headlights from my wrecker and the cruiser glowed behind me. The semi's hazards blinked ahead, dull orange smudges in a sea of gray. And to my right, just beyond the ragged line of the guardrail, the fog was darker. I swung my flashlight that way before I could talk myself out of it. The beam sliced across the barrier, over the drop-off, through the trees vanishing into mist. For a heartbeat, it landed on nothing. Then the nothing looked back. I know that doesn't make sense. I know, but that's the only way I can say it. The shape wasn't fully there. It was like someone had cut a person-shaped hole in the fog, a tall, thin silhouette that stayed the same shade of dark no matter how my light hit it. I couldn't make out eyes, or a mouth, or clothes, just long arms, too long, and a head tilted at a curious angle, like it was listening. A sound slid into my awareness, a soft, uneven breathing, and every nerve in my body screamed that it wasn't mine. I froze. For a long second, the shadow and I just existed. Then Lewis's voice cut through from somewhere behind me. "Mike, you good?" I jumped. My light flicked off the shape. When I swung it back, it was gone. The breathing wasn't. I forced air into my lungs. "Yeah," I called back, voice a little higher than I liked. "I'm good. Just watching my step." "Take it slow," he said. "Drop-off's right there." I looked over the rail. Nothing but gray. If I'd taken 3 more blind steps while staring at that thing, I don't like to think about it. I swallowed hard and turned back toward the semi, trying very hard to focus on the job. Chains, tow points, angles, the practical stuff that keeps your brain from unraveling. As I worked, though, that feeling of being watched never left. Every time I ducked under the trailer to check something, I had to fight the urge to look back toward the shoulder. More than once, I caught a glimpse of that too tall shadow standing between the flares, just outside the circle of light, vanishing whenever I looked straight at it. The driver sat in the back of the cruiser, wrapped in a blanket, watching me through the glass. His eyes were wide and unfocused, face pale in the dash glow. When I gave Lewis the thumbs up to start the rolling traffic stop and let me pull the semi back into shape, the driver motioned for me. I walked over, opened the door a crack. "You seen it?" he asked, before I could say anything, voice shaky. "Seen what?" I lied. He swallowed. "The shadow," he said, "in the fog. I swerved. I know that's stupid, I know you're not supposed to, but I swear, man, he was right there in the lane, like he wanted me to hit him." I thought about the shape by the guardrail, about the way the breathing had matched my own for a second, then gone off beat. "I didn't see anybody," I said. "Just you and your rig." His mouth twisted. "Yeah," he whispered. "That's what they always say." I closed the door and got back to work before he could say anything else. The actual recovery went eerily smooth. Given the angle and the conditions, it should have been a fight. But the truck came off the rail easier than expected, slid back into alignment like it was glad to be leaving. Within an hour, we had the lane mostly clear, troopers waving traffic through in cautious little caravans. The fog never lifted. If anything, it got thicker. As the last set of flares burned low, Lewis clapped me on the shoulder. "Heading back down?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "You?" "Gotta stick around up top. Make sure nobody else manages to screw up," he said. "You know how it is." I nodded, headed back to my truck. That's when I noticed the condensation on my passenger side window. There were smears in it. The glass was fogged from the outside, which was weird enough in that temperature. But what made my stomach drop were the lines. 4 long streaks, dragged downward, side by side, like someone had pressed a hand to the glass and pulled it slowly down. Each mark was spaced just a little too far apart to be human fingers. I stood there for a full 10 seconds, breath fogging my own side of the window now, forcing myself to think of anything else. Branches, equipment, my own gloves. But nothing matched that pattern. Behind me, in the thick gray, something took a slow step. I didn't turn around. Every instinct I had, human, animal, professional, was screaming, "Don't look." "Get in the truck, Mike," I told myself, jaw clenched. "Door, seat, ignition, go!" I opened the driver's door, climbed in, shut it maybe a little too hard. The cab suddenly felt like a capsule, a tiny island of barely okay in a whole ocean of nope. I fired up the engine. The familiar rumble helped, turned the beacons off, pulled slowly away from the scene. In the side mirror, for just a second, I saw it again. A tall, thin patch of darkness standing between the fading flares, head tilted, watching me leave. Then the curve took it out of sight. The trip down Dead Man Pass is always worse than the climb. Gravity's not on your side anymore. You're flirting with your brakes the whole way, engine jake-braking, eyes flicking between mirrors and gauges and the tiny slices of road you can see. Tonight, though, something else came along for the ride. About a mile into the descent, as I eased past one of the runaway truck ramps, the breathing came back. Soft at first. So soft I thought it might be the wind sneaking in through a seal. Inhale, exhale, just out of sync with my own. I tightened my grip on the wheel. "In your head," I muttered, "just in your head." The CB crackled suddenly, making me jump. "Anyone else feeling weird on this hill tonight?" Another voice chimed in. "Thought I saw a guy standing by the 3-mile marker. Tall bastard. Soon as I got close, he was gone." "You seen him too?" "Hell no. I ain't looking for him." I reached for the mic, but my hand hovered over it and then stopped. I didn't really want to join that particular party. The farther down I went, the more my brain felt wrong. Distances stretched and snapped like rubber bands. I'd swear I'd been driving 2 minutes and I'd only covered half a mile. Then, in what felt like 10 seconds, I'd blow past 3-mile markers. My eyes kept playing tricks on me. Sometimes the white line on the right looked like it was creeping sideways, pulling me toward the shoulder, even though my hands were steady. Sometimes the red glow of taillights ahead of me would double, like there were 2 trucks where there should be 1, and then merge back into a single set. Once, I saw the shadow of my own wrecker sliding along the fog on the rock wall to the left, as if there was another truck running beside me. I knew rationally it was just headlights and angles and a brain too tired to keep up. But every time I blinked, I half expected to open my eyes and see that tall, thin shape pressed against the glass again. I hit the worst patch about 1.5 miles from the base. The fog thickened into something closer to smoke. Visibility dropped to maybe 15-20 feet. I could see the rumble strips under my wheels. I could see the reflective posts whipping past. Everything else? Gone. The breathing in the cab got louder. Inhale, exhale. My own lungs joined in, chest tight, breaths short and fast. The 2 rhythms tangled until I couldn't tell which was which. The world felt smaller, the cab shrinking around me, the seatbelts too tight, the steering wheel too close. I started thinking about that kid again, pinned under the trailer, hand in mine, asking if he'd make it. I heard his voice as clearly as if he was in the passenger seat. "Am I gonna be okay?" I shook my head hard enough to make my neck pop. "That's not real," I said out loud. "You're not here. You're not here." Something in the fog laughed, quiet, right behind my left ear. It wasn't a full laugh, more like a breath with too much shape. I flinched so hard the truck twitched in the lane, tires bumping the rumble strip. The steering wheel went light under my hands for a fraction of a second, just long enough to feel wrong, like someone else had nudged it. Up ahead, a shadow appeared in the fog, right in the middle of my lane. Tall, thin, arms down at its sides, head cocked. It didn't move. I was doing 35 on a downgrade in a wrecker that weighed more than some houses. I didn't have room to stop. For one insane moment, some part of me thought, maybe if you hit it, everything stops. Maybe it wants that. That scared me more than the figure itself. I clenched my jaw, forced my foot steady on the brake, white-knuckled the wheel. "I'm not swerving for you," I muttered through my teeth. "Not tonight." The shadow didn't get closer. The truck did. And just before I rolled into it, it stepped back. The fog swallowed it whole like it had never been there. By the time I rolled off the mountain and into clearer air, I felt like I'd been squeezed through a tube. The fog peeled away so fast it was almost offensive. One minute I was in a gray coffin, the next minute there were stars overhead, headlights from other cars, the glow of Pendleton off in the distance. The breathing stopped. The world sounded normal again. Tires on pavement, wind in the side mirror, a faint whine from the turbo. I pulled into the truck stop at the bottom of the grade and just sat there for a good 30 seconds, engine idling, hands refusing to let go of the wheel. When I finally managed to climb down, my legs wobbled. Inside, the diner was warm and smelled like burnt coffee and fried everything. A handful of truckers sat at the counter, shoulders slumped, eyes heavy. I must have looked like hell, because the waitress didn't even ask. She poured me a coffee and topped it off with a splash of something that sure as hell wasn't creamer. "You coming down off Cabbage?" the guy on the next stool asked. "Yeah," I said. "Tow job. FedEx rig up near the top." He nodded slowly. "Fog bad?" "Bad," I said. "Real bad." He eyed me for a second, then asked, "You see him?" My fingers tightened around the mug. "Who?" "The one in the fog," he said, like it was the most normal question in the world. "Shadow fella. Tall, thin, likes to stand where you can't tell if you're about to hit him or not." I didn't answer. Didn't have to. Something in my face gave me away. "First time?" he asked. "Yeah," I said quietly. "And last, if I can help it." He snorted. "Mountain don't care if it's your last," he said. "Dead man's been taking folks since before they poured concrete up there." He sipped his coffee, then went on. "Old-timers used to say there was something on that grade that likes confusion," he said. "Back when it was just wagons, they'd talk about horses spooking at nothing in low clouds. Then it was Model Ts running off the shoulder. Now it's 18-wheelers and tourists in rentals." He glanced at me. "Best way to make a man crash is to mess with what he sees," he said. "Make him think there's something in the lane when there ain't, or hide something that is there. Either way, he overcorrects. Gravity does the rest." I stared into my coffee like it might give me answers. "So, what's the shadow?" I asked. He shrugged. "Marker? Warning? Bait?" he said. "Could be it's a piece of everybody who bought it up there, stuck in the fog. Could be it's something older that just moved on from deer and elk to bigger toys." He tapped the counter with one calloused finger. "Whatever it is," he said, "once you see it, you don't forget it. And it doesn't forget you neither." That last part sat in my chest for weeks like a rock. I told myself it was just truck stop superstition. Guys telling ghost stories to give shape to the random, ugly ways people die on a mountain. But I stopped taking calls up on Dead Man Pass at night if I could help it. I let the younger guys grab those. "Family stuff," I'd say. Doctor's appointment. Something came up. The dispatcher knew I was full of it. Didn't push. You do this work long enough, you know when someone's had their quota of a certain kind of bad. I still did daytime runs up there. In the sun, with clear air and views for miles, it was hard to believe I'd ever been scared of it. Still, every time a cloud bank slid over the summit, I felt my shoulders tighten. It was maybe 3 months later when I realized the guy at the counter might have been right about one thing. That the fog, whatever lives in it, doesn't necessarily stay on the mountain. I was off duty, driving my pickup home from a buddy's place on the edge of town. It was late, but not crazy late, 10:30, 11. The weather was clear, dry pavement, stars overhead. No reason at all to be nervous. I took the back way, a 2-lane road that winds a bit through fields and low hills before hitting the highway. I'd driven it 100 times, knew every bend, every mailbox. I was halfway down a straight stretch when I saw a little wisp of mist roll across the road. Nothing big, just a low, thin patch. I remember thinking, weird. Forecast didn't say anything about fog. Then my headlights hit it, and for just a second, it hit back. The world went gray. Not full Dead Man Pass concrete, but enough that the edges of the road blurred. My chest tightened. My palms went slick on the wheel. And in that thin strip of fog ahead, right on the center line, there was a shadow. Tall, too tall. Wrong around the edges, standing exactly where I'd seen it on the grade. I didn't slow down, didn't speed up. I just stared straight ahead, knuckles white, jaw locked, breath shallow. The truck rolled forward. The shadow stayed. Right before I would have hit it, the mist peeled away like someone yanking a curtain. Clear air, empty road. The radio, which I hadn't even realized had gone quiet, popped back to life in the middle of some country song. I drove the rest of the way home at 5 under the limit, hands shaking. In the weeks since, I've seen it a few more times. Never for long, never up close. Sometimes it's in a patch of fog over a drainage ditch on an otherwise clear night. Sometimes it's in the rearview mirror as I'm backing a car into the bay, just a darker spot in the reflection, gone when I turn around. Once, I woke up from a dead sleep at 3 a.m., heart pounding, convinced someone was standing in my driveway. I got up, looked through the blinds, nobody there. But the streetlight glow had that same flat, suffocating quality as the fog on Dead Man Pass. For a second, I swear the shadow of my own mailbox looked too tall, too thin. Then a car drove by, and everything snapped back to normal. I still work the mountain. Day shifts. I still tell myself what I saw up there was the product of stress and bad visibility, and a guilty brain that never stopped replaying a kid's last words. But part of me, the part that felt that breathing on my neck, the part that saw those 2 long finger streaks on my window, knows better. There's something in that fog, something that waits on Dead Man Pass for tired hands and slow reactions, for anyone willing to look straight at it for a second too long. Something that learns you when you see it, like a dog catching a scent. So if you ever find yourself climbing into the Blue Mountains at night, and the air suddenly goes gray for no reason, and your radio cuts to static, keep your hands steady. Don't swerve. Don't chase shapes in the fog. And if you feel like someone tall and thin is standing just outside your headlights, do yourself a favor. Don't look too hard. Because if it looks back, there's a chance it'll follow you down off that mountain. And once it learns the shape of your truck, or your voice, or your fear, Dead Man Pass stops being just a spot on the map. It becomes a place that shows up wherever you find fog and bad decisions. And it waits there, like a shadow in the mist, for the next time you're too tired to trust what you see. If these stories sent even a little chill down your spine, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. It helps me know you're ready for more. Until the next midnight, stay safe out there.